Imagine being an alien looking down on a society that has harnessed nuclear fission and fusion, at least in mass, and they're still putting up windmills. Like, if I was an alien, I wouldn't contact me either. I would just keep flying right by that solar system. But beyond how ridiculous they are, the windmills that these things are costing taxpayers millions of dollars. Not just windmills, a ton of green energy schemes. And it's all subsidies, all in the name of like the giant grift of climate change. Because one 12-year-old stood on stage and said this.
How dare you?
Now she's a high school dropout. It's fine that auto tech companies want to reduce carbon emissions. I applaud that. But why do we have to be the ones to pay for it? I drive a diesel pickup truck. I don't care about your electric car. We've been doing this for over a decade, and this stuff is still not economically viable. There are, however, some sane legislators trying to fight this with new passage of bills, and I got two of them with me now. Oklahoma State Representative Jim Shaw and West Virginia State Senator Chris Rose. Jim, this actually in Oklahoma somehow failed. How in the world did people say, yeah, you know what, let's light more money on fire?
We are a supermajority reddest state in the union, and we have been sold out to green energy for decades. I mean, it has been a fight from the very beginning. Yeah, Senate Bill 239 that I authored along with Senator Wingard had a 5-5 tie in committee and failed in committee.
Are they getting kickbacks or something? Like, how did that happen? Why? You guys are on like oil reserves.
We are. We've got some of the biggest natural gas reserves in the nation, and quite frankly, the world. And yes, you're right. The wind lobby here in Oklahoma is very strong and very healthy, and they have been doling out money to these guys for a long time.
It's maddening to me, and it's our money too. And sir, some of it's probably coming from the federal. But Chris, you're also the chair of the West Virginia Energy Committee. Okay, now we're seeing this also in West Virginia. I mean, you guys are coal country to the bone, and it's in your final days of legislative session. You're also trying to cut off subsidies to all these green things and say, hey, you're fine if you survive on your own. How's it looking for you?
Oh, so far so good. It did pass out of the Senate Energy Committee. It's now going to the Senate Committee of Finance. We've got support from the governor on this because we're trying to be in line with the Trump administration here. We want energy to stand on its own merit. I don't think that's a very controversial thing to ask, is for all forms of energy, whether it be wind, solar, coal, oil, or gas, to stand on its own merit. But we know if we do that, that wind and solar will not survive. I mean, we're talking a $10 million year-over-year subsidy that's to the tune of only 64 jobs through this subsidy, and we're subsidizing this to $156,000 per job. That is more than double what the job pays. It is unreliable, it's extremely expensive, and the Trump administration is going to be removing these subsidies very soon. So why should the states be forced to be caught holding the bag, paying for this type of energy that quite frankly just doesn't even work?
Yeah, I mean, Jim, look, I live in the Socialist Republic of Connecticut, where they encourage you to have a deal of putting solar panels on your roof. Then you pay for them, and it sells the energy back to the state. So we subsidize ourselves, but also taxpayer subsidies subsidize these things. And none of it is economically viable, and yet we continue to pump this stuff in. What was some of the conversations you were having with some of your counterparts on this, being like, hey guys, I don't think this is a good idea? What was their argument?
The argument specifically with this bill, which was taking away the state level subsidies that have been in place for some time, is that, well, we made a promise to the industry. We shouldn't go back on that promise. Well, my argument is, if you make a bad investment and you acknowledge that it's a bad investment and you're really not getting a return on that investment, at some point you should stop the bleeding. And unfortunately, they didn't see that way.
Chris, it seems like West Virginia is a little bit more rational on this one. No offense to your state, Jim, but I mean, it does seem to me that this is a no-brainer. Has anybody opposed it in your state?
I mean, yes, of course, we face opposition. We also are a Republican supermajority. So like my colleague from Oklahoma says, you'll see people who opposed a bill saying, well, there was previous economic development where this was a deal for so some company can meet an ESG score, or so we can reduce a carbon footprint. But they're not telling you the full truth. When a company says that they're pushing this type of energy to reduce the carbon footprint, how about they tell the American media, how about they tell the American people that these windmills are made in China with coal-fired generation without any environmental controls, unlike what we have here with clean coal in the United States.
And they will never never replace their carbon footprint. I love how these people, instead of putting up a 12 by 12 concrete pad for an oil platform, they will bulldoze 10,000 acres of the sage grouse and say they're saving the environment. These people are morons. You guys are smart, though. We like you. Jim, Chris, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.